Movie starts with Colton McCready. He is a newly retired former Special Forces soldier returning to his hometown after many days on the endless plains. However, he's barely had a chance to decompress and chill upon returning home when he receives news from his sister that his niece has been kidnapped by a gang of thugs. The head honcho of this gang is none other than Old Man Garcia, the biggest meth kingpin in all of Mexico at the time. Power, status, along with wealth, and fame make him a man no one here dares to mess with. But the one and only Colton alone shows up at his base not long after. Casually strolling into the elevator, he immediately uses a few of his martial arts moves to test his skills against the gangsters here. His slow footsteps step out into the hallway. The top fighters Old Man Garcia recruited from all over the criminal underworld are all taken down by him as lightly as a feather. He grabs the leader by the collar, forcing him to lead him to find his niece and threatening him with a voice full of rage. Finally, he finds the little girl handcuffed and in a state of fear, completely panicked. Upon seeing his niece, he immediately pulls the leader over and beats him to a pulp. Afterwards, he takes the key to unlock the number 8 handcuffs for his niece, and the two of them leave together, returning to their home in the remote countryside. His sister sees her daughter brought back and runs out joyfully to welcome them both. Right at this moment, the sister's boyfriend is also here. He stole a few kilos of meth from a kingpin, then did a runner, disappearing for a while. And that's precisely why the old man kidnapped little Haley with the purpose of selling her to recoup the money from the goods he had stolen. Colton was about to punch this worthless stepfather, but held back out of respect for his sister. Knowing that the kingpin is an extremely brutal gangster, Colton immediately told the mother and daughter to go somewhere far away to take refuge and to just forget about that scumbag husband of his sister's. Over at the base, the mafia boss is furious when he hears the news. He can't believe that some nobody would dare to storm his base. Not only killing countless close henchmen and snatching his person, but also taking something incredibly important. It turns out that while Colton was taking the necklace with the key to unlock the handcuffs for his niece, he accidentally took their hard drive back with him. And on that hard drive was a lot of business information and evidence of crimes. Mad with rage, he immediately has a henchman killed in front of everyone as a warning to them. The old man immediately calls the chief of police, his lapdog, and gives him the information. That jerk stole my drugs and that guy named Colton killed my people and stole my property. If you can't catch those two, I'll have you retired. Hearing this, the police officer could only lament. As soon as they heard from the boss, all the police immediately showed up at Colton's sister's house. He couldn't show his face, so he told his sister and niece to stay while he would temporarily hide in the shed out back. The police chief, a man who puts responsibility first, immediately slapped the number 8 cuffs on that hateful stepfather's wrists. Then he tried to question the mother and daughter about Colton's whereabouts with a face full of rage. The sister tried to ignore him and talk nonsense, which made this guy furious, but he couldn't do anything. Her boyfriend in the car poked his head out to eavesdrop. Then he pointed out that the little brat was hiding in the shed. At this point, Colton already had a firearm in hand, just waiting for the cops to charge in so he could have a showdown with them. Knowing that Old Man Garcia and his men would be here any minute and not wanting to endanger his sister and niece, Colton had no choice but to jump on his iron horse and took off at a godlike speed, then followed a fast and furious chase. The two cops, though a bit slower in pursuit, quickly got on his tail and repeatedly kissed the back of his car. Then one of them used a gun to shoot out a tire, causing Colton to lose control and have to stop. Their car didn't slow down, but just lovingly rammed into his. Colton managed to jump out and escape in a heart-pounding moment. On the other side, the Kingpin Garcia had also brought countless hardcore henchmen to check on Colton's health. The Kingpin knew the protagonist wasn't just tough, but on another level, so he immediately ordered his 2 right-hand men to go provide backup. The drug-addicted stepfather also apologized to the boss for accidentally doing his drugs without paying. The boss didn't hold a grudge and immediately gifted him a copper candy right between his eyes, officially ending his role right here. Back on the other side, the 2 cops were sweating buckets looking for the protagonist, but still found no trace of him. Suddenly, he rushed out, snatched a gun, and took one of them down. However, he was restrained from behind by the other one. Just then, the 2 high-ranking assassins also arrived. They opened fire but ended up shooting a cop on their own side. Thanks to this, the protagonist was able to escape. Afterwards, Colton provided cover fire. The assassin, nicknamed Truck Monster, said they only wanted the hard drive. Colton, hearing this, didn't understand at first, then suddenly remembered taking the necklace when he rescued his niece. Knowing his ammo was running low, Colton used the tactic of flanking from behind a cop. Colton finally took down one assassin, then threw his gun away and left. The truck monster chased after him and was met with a furious dragon kick. Colton grabbed the belt and threw him to the ground, followed by a shadowless kick right to the mouth, making him spit out a mouthful of red syrup. The boss on the other side called on the radio, but got no response from his men. Feeling something was wrong, losing the hard drive was something that could bankrupt him, he immediately sent 2 more subordinates with heavy weapons to hunt the protagonist. On his way back, Colton found an AK-47 and immediately left. However, just as he came out from the hillside, the other 2 had arrived. One guy poked his head out with a gun, but Colton closed his eyes to aim, and then he flew over the car's roof, narrowly escaping with his life. The other one, not knowing fear, immediately chased him to the bitter end. Colton Wall jumped onto the car's hood and then used his strength to kick in the entire windshield. After that, he shot him painfully in the hand. He forced him to say what was on the hard drive. Fearing he would meet his maker, the guy confessed before even being beaten, saying that inside it contained the secret information of the organization's offshore bank account passwords. Immediately, the protagonist showed no mercy to the evil man. Old Man Garcia had lost more of his close henchmen. The kingpin and the police chief were utterly terrified of Colton's power. Seeing things had gone too far, the scummy old man threatened, "I'll have someone pay a visit to your darling son." However, if the police chief feared his threat 1 part, he feared the protagonist 10 parts. He immediately left, abandoning the brutal scene here. After dealing with the hunting dogs and rushed back to rescue his sister and niece arriving home, he hid behind the bushes to avoid detection, then used his agility to silently jump out and attack a guard. Inside the house, the old man, observing through the window, discovered his men lying on the cold ground. He immediately took the sister and her daughter hostage and uttered a threat. The protagonist, worried for his family's lives, had no choice but to show himself. He dropped his gun, pretending to surrender, but was actually looking for a chance to counterattack these guys. Seeing this, the boss got straight to the point. "What I want is the hard drive." He knew that even if he gave it to them, they would kill all 3 of them anyway. So, Colton approached to make the delivery. Just as the old man's henchman was about to reach into his pocket to get the hard drive, he suddenly unleashed his long-hidden brute force. Then, quick as a flash, he ran into the house with them. And so a terrifying gunfight erupted. Bullets flying everywhere but hitting no one. His sister also grabbed a gun that was already in the house, loaded it, and joined the gunfight against the mafia. Colton and his sister attacked from the windows while they took cover behind the cars outside. The reason the boss couldn't just bomb or burn the house down was because the protagonist still had his hard drive. Therefore, he immediately sent 2 henchmen to flank through the back door for a surprise attack. Colton realized this. He began to pick a good position and waited for them. His firepower quickly and easily suppressed these guards, temporarily holding them back. Colton told his sister and niece to go upstairs to take refuge. In the meantime, the 2 intruders had also broken down the door and gotten inside. While one guy was standing there dazed, the protagonist suddenly appeared, using his handgun to take him out cleanly with a shot through the neck. The other one didn't much better, getting jumped and grabbed by the neck. As the 2 struggled, the gun pointed straight up and a series of gunshots rang out. Colton knocked the opponent's gun away and started landing a flurry of blows on him. Upstairs, little Haley was terrified by the sound of gunfire. Immediately, she dialed 911 for the federal police. At that moment, the police chief picked up the phone because he was the chief of this area. Through Haley's phone line, he could hear the gunshots and knew he couldn't hide this anymore. Besides, he was also feeling a pain of conscience. So, he decided to turn back and help the protagonist. And knowing that this time he might not return, he called his son at home to hear his voice one last time. Old Man Garcia outside called on the radio. But when his 2 subordinates didn't answer, his blood pressure dropped. He ordered all his forces to launch a full-scale assault inside, breaking in simultaneously. Realizing there were too many of them, and moreover, his gun was almost out of ammo, Colton had no choice but to risk it and rush to the 2nd floor to wait for a chance to counterattack. At that moment, the police chief had also arrived, wearing a bulletproof vest to settle the score. Inside, the boss tried his best to persuade Colton to hand over the hard drive. However, He saw right through his plot and told his sister and niece to quickly climb out the window and leave while he would stay behind to hold off this herd of brutes. Seeing no movement from the protagonist, the restless boss ordered his men to shoot up through the ceiling. Luckily, the sister and little Haley had already escaped the area. Hearing their footsteps approaching, Colton burst through the door from the inside. His AK ran out of ammo right at that moment, so he had no choice but to risk it, kick the door open, and immediately neutralize one guy. He used him as a human shield, then snatched his gun and jumped down to attack the guy on the lower floor. And with just a few basic moves, he knocked the gun out of his hand. The guy upstairs who had just been knocked out by Colton's door kick was now waking up from his daze. While Colton was grappling with the other guy, he rushed in and stabbed him in the side. He went on a 1 versus 2 rampage. Every blow was a fatal one. Outside, the mother and daughter quickly ran to the shed. Suddenly, Old Man Garcia was standing ominously behind them, restraining them and saying, "I only need one hostage. The other one has to die." The police chief suddenly appeared and tossed the boss right in the stomach, ending his drug-dealing career right there. Just when you thought the police chief had turned over a new leaf, greed resurfaced. He also wanted the hard drive to rob the bank accounts. Who knew that Colton would appear like a god, putting 2 shots into his chest? However, this guy had a pre-prepared bulletproof vest, so it didn't do anything. He was about to grab his gun, but was stopped by the protagonist's foot. At this point, he didn't strike, but instead gave him 2 choices for his crimes. 1. Handcuff himself and turn himself in, or 2. Have a gunfight with him like real men. After some thought, the police chief then drew his gun to attack, but that was his last chance to turn over a new leaf. And finally, everything was over. Colton handed the hard drive to the mother and daughter and said his goodbyes. That's the end of the movie.